We do that to you every time, don't we, Art? Welcome to the Monday meeting of the BOCC. I think we're going to go out of turn a little bit here. We have some folks with us that wanted to talk. I don't know what the issue is. We'll just bring them up and with it, or did you want to start it?
I would probably ask them to come up and speak. There are two of them, I think, that want to speak, but the gentleman with the gray baseball cap, would you come up to a microphone and present your case? If you'd bring the picture here, I'll just send it through so they can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, and think about all the rats and stray cats and stuff that get in there. All the antifreeze and oil leaking.
Oh yeah. So I've already seen these.
There's a.
So if you let us know the location and some of the details, what your specific concern is, that's a good start.
And is the mic on?
Want to speak to the microphone because we are recording this.
Good. Anyways, this illegal wrecking yard is in Carroll's. And it's been there for over 5 years. And nothing's really been done. He's had that letter sent to him and nothing's changed. It doesn't look good and it's not healthy. It is illegal.
About whenever that was, the letters 2019, and at that time you could see from Old Pacific Highway, which is Old Pacific Highway is at the top of the picture. It's not seen. You could see that there were some, I would say somewhere around 5 or 6, call them automobiles, that were sort of lined up. You could see them from the highway. You couldn't see anything else, but that was enough to cause us and EHU to go down and send a letter. And I haven't kept track of that at all, but apparently it's really blossomed. And that's a Google Earth picture showing a pretty expansive operation there. It's one of those things where, if nothing else, I think it has to be in the category, if there's a problem, it's a health hazard. In the county, we don't have zoning. I think for a wrecking yard, you have to have specific state license. Is that not right, Mr. Weber? Yeah.
He's probably got 75 to 100 cars there. And you got to wonder how many are leaking antifreeze and oil into the ground.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, the health department don't even want to talk to you. Makes you wonder why we even have the health department.
So you've tried to talk to the health department, and
I'm sorry?
You've tried to talk to the health department?
Yeah, he wouldn't even talk to me, let alone file a complaint.
Do we have David on?
We're still working on getting him online.
Okay. Maybe.
What was and I don't recall how many years ago, and I don't even know if Commissioner Weber was on the board at that time, but remember the gentleman with the tires?
Mm-hmm. That was before my time.
What was the process on that? Because
they ultimately ended up condemning the property, but
was it the county
that
did that?
Yes.
So it'd probably be the same type of, I mean, I'm not an attorney. That's what we have
Yeah.
David for, but I'm assuming it'd
But if it's a
follow
wrecking
some of
yard-
that kind of route.
If it's a wrecking yard, there's a different permitting process, from what I understand anyway. So the best thing to do is to find out from staff where we are on following up on the letter. Why hasn't it been done? 2019 was right as COVID started and we had all kinds of problems. Getting staffing done. And we've had new personnel coming and going. So we have two agencies. The letter came from Building and Planning, but EHU, it seems to me, is also involved because of the solid waste problems with pollutants getting into the water stream. I mean, it's all low lying area. It's not up on the hills. It's down on the flats, right? Yeah.
It does flood there.
Yeah. So that.
This was sent out 5 years ago, so.
Yeah. I'm wondering why it hasn't, what the follow-up has been. Yeah.
I don't, we may not be able to get David on, but I certainly would think we need to chat with him and.
Yeah, so I think what you're hearing is first you heard from me that it's very difficult for us to control what people do. And we've had lots of history of finding a lawbreaker, issuing fines and then fines and fines, and nothing ever happens.
Has he been fined yet?
I don't know that. I'm just saying categorically, we're told typically that that's not an effective tool. I don't know why that is. That's why we were hoping to get an attorney on board. But I think at this point, I think you've made your point. The pictures, if we can keep those, or we can make some extra copies, yeah, then we'll get back to you on whatever progress we can make.
Do you want to be the point of contact with
Yeah.
the gentleman? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we want you to shut him down. He owned 2 wrecking yards in town. He sold them and then started one up out in Carroll's.
Yeah, I think like my colleague was saying, and wrecking yards, even though they're in the county, they need to have a license. Where they are now, I assume that's the one on 3rd and Kelso.
I'm sorry?
I assume the other wrecking yard are the ones
Used
that
to
are in
own
the
Ace
cities.
And then one out on the dike, I think, and they've been sold.
Yeah, there were issues out on the dike also. You remember them at all, Dennis?
No.
Yeah, several years ago, that was an issue. Well, we'll do what we can on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. I think that's the first time it's been brought formally to this board.
does he
as
you
far as I
want
know.
these back? You're okay?
Do you want the copies back? Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Robert Portner. I live 2 houses down from this wrecking yard. I'm plagued with cats that roam free. I usually in the summer, I've been finding 2, 3 dead cats out there on my ground. I'm sure the coyotes are getting them. But these vehicles, I can't tell you that they're not drained of oil and gas, but they're a direct, it gets into the ground, gets into the pond that's there, that goes across the freeway and into the river. So it's an environmental thing. I couldn't get anybody to even listen to me on that. It's just an eyesore, and our property values go down because of it. you say you can't do anything. I don't understand that. I mean, why does the county have rules if they're not gonna enforce them? Or at least attempt to enforce them?
Well, the attempt to enforce them is already there. You saw it in the letter. The regulations in the county are sparse. However, a wrecking yard is, as like I've mentioned, a specific element that needs a state license permit to operate. We may have to contact the state, may have to do something there, but we have all kinds of difficulty with scofflaws, people that don't want to play with the law. And these gentlemen were under belief that we go around the county and drive around and our responsibility is to find the scofflaws. And I said, well, that's probably not how it works.
Well, it just doesn't make any sense to me if I've talked to the health department, I've talked to the environmental. That's just dead wood. Somebody brought up about the tires out on Ocean Beach Highway. I was involved in that, so I know something can be done.
Well, like I said, we will pursue it. We understand the concern. The intensity of the concern is obvious.
Do we have contact information for the two of you? We were going to get back in touch with you.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. We don't, we normally don't have you put down an address and contact information so we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, Robert Portner, 3549 Old Pacific Highway South.
If you wouldn't mind, could you give the receptionist in the commissioner's office your email, your phone number, your names?
Sure, I'm sure they've already got it, but I'll go in and make sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I say I'm sure they have it, but I'll go back in there and make sure. I've been in there 4 or 5 times here complaining.
Okay, and the
So-
result was you were sent away?
No, my result was I was to come to a commissioners meeting, which I did last week and nobody was here.
Okay. Well, as long as you know we have your contact information.
Well, I'll make sure they do have it.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate.
Thank you.
that. Thank you.
yeah, you
We'll look
bet.
into it.
Parks and Rec.
Good morning, Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. I have Parks and Recreation today that we're going to go over their financials. This is through July 23rd, our financials. They're part of the general fund, so they receive their appropriation from the general fund. As far as revenue, they basically for this year have $144,000, $100 in revenue budgeted. Our actuals are some miscellaneous for $29,000 basically. The other financing sources for $100,000 that's budgeted is actually for a transfer from ARPA, and that hasn't occurred yet for a project that they have. And so we are on track, on target for miscellaneous revenue. We're at 65, almost 66% revenue to budget currently.
So there are 2 revenue sources is miscellaneous from the general fund.
Yeah.
And ARPA funds in
And ARPA.
anticipation. How do we fund 2 FTEs out of $44,000?
We actually, it's from the general fund. This is a general fund department.
But you have it down as 2 FTEs, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you
We're
can't
not, we don't show the actual transfer in from the general fund on these. It's collapsed into one, it's just one department of the many departments that make up general fund. Any other questions on revenue? And then on their expenditures, as you said, they have 2 FTEs. That's, they have a budget of 213,000. Their personnel, right now doesn't, on the actuals, it doesn't include the second half of July payroll because that hasn't been posted yet. But they are on track, to stay within their budget. And so I don't see any issues there. Their services are currently below the budget target at this point. And so they're right on track with that as well. They're at 39% of budget through July 23rd. And they have a little bit of capital, but they haven't expended any capital expenses yet.
So the ARPA transfer is for something out at the range? Or is it, I know
I believe that's
approved a
was
number of them.
Riverside, I think.
Yeah, it's for the tennis court and basketball court resurfacing.
Ah, that's right. Okay. Thank you.
Lisa, how many parks do we have and what kind of area does it compromise or comprise?
So we go all the way from Woodland, which is Finn Hall, all the way up into Tootle. We have 11 parks, and we also have a cemetery, Catlin Cemetery, and then we also have the gun range.
So 11 parks, cemetery, the gun range,
That includes, they're in the 11.
and are you not also taking care of the rest stop up in Cougar?
We just contracted out to have
Contracted
those
that out.
cleaned, so it's been about a month since they've been taken care of, so we're not having to drive up there twice a week, but we still have to drive up there to deliver supplies or if we have any issues.
And that's actually being funded currently from the tourism fund.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to give people a sense of, we have 2 people and the breadth that they, that they do to run those things, so.
Do we still have the resident custodian out at Gardner Park?
We do, and their contract is up the end of September.
Okay. And but they're not listed as an FTE.
No,
They just get free room
yes.
theoretically, or space.
And I can't recall if Commissioner Weber was here when it came up that we sold a couple pieces of property that were funded through RCO. And I don't know how many years, it's been quite a few years ago that it was sold, but now it's causing us problems at RCO because if they fund a thing, you can't really get rid of it.
Correct.
So, and I just couldn't remember if you were here or not, Commissioner Weber, when they were talking about that. So we're trying to work through some of that because it's caused you some issues. You were looking at some funding for Hog Island, I think,
So
and it was causing you some issues there.
it will only affect us in the future is if we go for a land water conservation fund grant. And thank goodness we didn't. We went for a different one for Riverside Park. But it will affect us in the future. And I'm working with RCO to see how we can go about to fix this. But it's going to take us some time.
We were not up here. We were not aware that there were these restrictions on those lots when the recommendation came to sell those lots because we weren't using it. It was outside the park. So somehow that message didn't get up to this level.
Well, it sounds like the message got to the person that was doing it, but that person did it anyways, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and you're correct. It may not got it up to this level though. go ahead, Norm.
So, excuse me, I've got a couple of general questions. First one is, we know that there are always people that abuse the parks. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you manage that, or how you deal with it, I guess?
Oh, that's, so for instance, for this last year, we had a serious vandalism problem where we had people coming in and tagging the bathrooms at Riverside Park at least 3 times a week, breaking toilets, breaking partition walls. So it's more of like we basically are on Groundhog's Day and doing the same thing every day, trying to clean everything up. And nothing really happens. We did catch some kids. I didn't see any restitution come through. I don't even know what happened with the situation. So.
See, one of the reasons I asked that is I suspected that, but I wasn't sure, but it ties in a little bit to the earlier people that complained. We know, in general, people that do the damage know what they're doing, and they do it anyhow, with the certainty that we don't have the mechanism to straighten them out. It's a legislature issue, I think, and it's a attorney issue, a superior court issue. Anyhow, you've got that problem in spades all over the place, I assume. And for your own protection, when you go out on these places, you have a deputy that comes along with you occasionally?
The only time the deputy comes along is if we have a serious issue. And usually if we're going to places that we know are not safe, there's usually 2 of us. So, and most of the damage and vandalism happens at night, except for the group that I caught. So we're usually not there for when things like that happen. Hopefully it continues that way.
You were gonna have a dog go along with you? Has that ever worked out?
Yeah, she actually accompanied me for 3 years, but she is now retired and staying at home.
I might suggest you pick up another dog, maybe something closer to a hyena.
I don't know, she kind of has that look.
Lean and hungry look, huh? Yeah, it's again, another way for me to let the public know it's one heck of a tough job. It's not just counting the butterflies or anything like that.
I appreciate that, thank you.
The other question has to do about the baseball fields at Riverside Park. You were involved with a recent inquiry, and I don't know where that stands, but I know we had an unhappy customer about that. Can you update us or take us from the beginning? I don't know.
Yeah, so I can kind of take you from the beginning. So we used to have a contract with Kelso Youth Baseball in exchange for them to have first right use of the fields. They would do the maintenance on them. They stopped doing the maintenance, so we canceled our contract with them. And then we partnered with Devils Fast Pitch and Castle Rock Youth Baseball for a year. And then Castle Rock backed out because it was too much work for them. Now Devils has all 3 fields and they've done an amazing job with them. It's night and day. There's usually somebody there almost every single day doing projects. They put in a ton of volunteer hours. The girls come and they actually help work on the fields. They've gotten a lot of donations, so the fields look great. Now we have somebody that wants to come in and they want to use the fields, even though they haven't put any of the time or money into them. And he was a little upset that we declined. And I don't know where that's gone. I think Mike was going to take over.
Okay, that was a gentleman who wants to start up another competitive baseball team.
Correct.
And they were, the contract we have with
Devils Fast Pitch.
DFS, no, DFP, Devil's Fast Pitch, right?
DFP, sure.
Right, okay. And that is a non-exclusive there's a non-exclusivity in there. And the thing I'm looking for here is like a sense of, is there room for accommodation? So I don't like to turn anybody down if they're well-behaved, and I don't like to abuse the people who are there now. But the gentleman who spoke to me about this, they're willing to take up the baton also and do all that same kind of stuff. I don't think it's a good policy to a priori say no. And so Mike Moss was going to take a look into that, and that's still up in the air.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Are the fields used, all 3 fields used all the time?
Currently, they're used almost every single night for practices. I want to say they have 8 teams. Could be more. I'll have to double check.
Okay, and they're used every day of the week after 5 or some such thing?
During their season, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in your opinion, there just isn't enough availability to make the effort to try to.
Correct. And I also think it's kind of interesting that, now that the fields look so nice, we have so many people that are interested in taking them and using them. I don't know. I don't think it's a very good partnership if Devils did all of this work and then we say, oh, we're going to let a bunch of other people in and use them. That's my concern.
Yeah, I know, but you're innocent until proven guilty, of course. I doubt he wanted to start a team up just because he saw that there were some beautiful baseball fields. We do things in the community in general to benefit the entire community. So that's a little bit of a hard line that I would not take, but I would certainly make sure that anybody honors the quality and chips in a commensurate manner.
Alyssa, I'd like to go back to the issue of the vandalism with restrooms. Do we have a problem with that at Gardner Park?
When we have a camp post,
We have a camp post.
when we have a camp post, we usually don't have that issue. Every once in a while, we'll have people come in, they tag the bathroom that's closest to the bridge that the camp post can't see. But as soon as the park's vacant, things start happening in the middle of the night. We get tagged, things get stolen. It's kind of one of those, if there's not eyes on something all the time, people think they can do anything they want.
Have you looked into alternative forms of restroom facilities that are less expensive to repair? Because I know it's a lot of money to go in and fix, sinks and fixtures and walls.
We're actually fairly lucky that our bathrooms at Riverside are made out of brick. So they don't do any serious damage structurally yet to the buildings. Usually it's breaking toilets. There's not really anywhere else we can go with that. We tried doing stainless steel at one time and they are not stainless. They look terrible. And if somebody tries jumping on those, they will actually mess up the plumbing and that's even more expensive. So it's easier for us to repair if somebody breaks porcelain than it is if they break the plumbing that goes all the way through the wall. So the only thing that we could really switch to is the concrete vault toilets, but people still vandalize, graffiti goes a long ways. It takes a lot of time to paint over.
Wonder if it makes any sense, surveillance, obviously not inside the toilets, but around the outside, motion sensor lights, things, so people, when they're coming in the middle of the night, they know something's happening and then somebody's watching. I don't know if it would make any sense or help at all.
So we have motion sensing lights on the outside of all of our bathrooms. That hasn't helped at all. We had cameras at one point, however, the cameras got stolen. We had a guy that hit it from the top of the pole, and I'm still trying to figure out how he did this. And he took the camera home with him, and we actually have a picture of his face because he turned it back on when he got to his house. However, I turned that into the sheriff's deputies. They can't do anything because they don't know who this person is. And then cameras sitting outside of a bathroom, you don't know exactly who did it when they go in, and you have to have your cameras low so you can see their face. So we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I do not know this, the territory I'm trying to explore here, but maybe we can talk to our attorneys about some kind of ordinance that will actually put some teeth into when you find somebody that's a violator, actually making them really unhappy that they've made a violation, because right now they just laugh. And that is why we have this problem. One of the things I'd like is for anybody under the age of something or other, that the mom and dad are immediately effectively responsible, and they will pay the price. If the kid did something that is heinous and should require jail time, the mom and dad serve the jail time. I don't know, just something, because our country has fallen apart because of this kind of nonsense. And
Yeah.
And
Oh.
sadly, I want to say this, it's not just kids. We have adults that have the same, view. It's before, you talk to somebody and say, hey, please don't do that. It's against the rules. And they're like, okay, well, now it's more of a, we're going to do what we want. Thanks for telling us, though. And then they continue on with what they're doing.
and you're fortunate you haven't been personally attacked yet.
Almost.
Almost. Well, yeah, I imagine there've been threats.
Yep.
I really dislike that.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution, but I'm willing to explore something. Parks we spend, cities, counties, states, they spend a lot of money on their parks, and people like the parks. I mean, I think it's an important social benefit, and to have a few that go out and continually wreck these things, frustrating at the very least.
You didn't know that this financial report was so extensive, did you?
Let's go to more positive things other than vandalism in parks. We did have a disc golf tournament yesterday at Riverside, so that was great. We had 75 participants, so the park was packed. Positive.
I'm assuming you get a lot of activity during STP.
Yes,
Yeah.
too many. It's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead.
So I'm wondering, other than, you said you have a picture of a gentleman who stole a camera. You don't know who he is. You gave it to the sheriff's office. They don't know who he is. So where's it gone from there?
It didn't go anywhere. It has nowhere else to go, sadly.
I see people all the time post pictures of people who've done vandalism and stuff to they post it on Facebook and they put it on different places. It comes off their Ring cameras. Picture, it says, do you know who this person is? Have you tried posting anything online or somewhere? I mean, somewhere, some way, if you have rules, but you don't eventually enforce them, the rules are worthless, which is what you're sitting here testifying to. And somehow, some way, you better start catching some of these people and prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law, or it's just going to keep getting worse. If you don't find a way to follow up on it, then having rules are worthless. If you have rules that you can't enforce, why do you have a department? Why do you exist?
Well,
I'm not law enforcement, so I can only do so much.
That's right. You can't do, that's law enforcement side of it, but you can sure as heck help them get there.
Well.
It's not clear that there's anything beyond what she does to help. Actually, I could ask you an interesting question. I've seen occasionally do you know who this person is on Facebook? Have you ever followed up to see if that materialized in anything useful?
I haven't. They haven't been things that personally affect me, so I haven't followed up on them.
Ooh, see, that's part of the issue then too. I mean, I think what you mean is you don't know the person, so.
What I mean is, it's not my property. If it was my property, I'd be following up on it. In this case, it's county property. and you got a county department that isn't following up on it. It's like it's not their property. Do they care?
It's,
I think they care. They turn it over to the right authorities. I'm not asking public, or I'm not asking parks to be put on a sheriff badge and do that work.
I'm not either.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're kind of accusing them of not doing their job, and I think they do their job.
I'm seeing there's other ways to find stuff. You can't, if you have, especially if you have a picture, why would you just let it drop? Why would you not pursue that in every possible way you can think of to find out who that person is? If you've already got a picture of somebody and just giving it to the sheriff's office and they say, okay, don't know, don't care. It didn't affect them. And they're doing their job by saying, well, we don't know who this person is. I can't believe, especially with facial recognition, if the sheriff's office, and I don't know what their capabilities are, they could probably search every driver's license in the county, assuming the person has a driver's license.
Well, we got 2 people that run 11 parks from Woodland to Tootle, so not sure how much time I can ask them to do some of that.
yeah, I think your
Okay.
major concern is with downstream now. So parks person goes in and sees that there's been vandalism that has taken place. Maybe they have some idea when, or they even have a picture somehow magically. Then they have to give that to the sheriff. And at that point, it's no longer parks' obligation to investigate, it's the sheriff's obligation. Then if the sheriff finds something out, then the prosecuting attorney gets involved. And so there is a long chain. I do know that in the cities, people walk into stores and walk out without paying, and that's a pretty bad habit to allow, but apparently we don't do a very good job after that. We know the person, that's his backpack and so forth, and we turn them in, and I don't think very much happens.
Well, I'm not arguing not very much happens. That's what we're sitting here with an example of, not very much happens. And it's real easy to say, let's pass the buck from one agency to the next agency to the next agency. And that last agency or anyone in between who decides to drop the ball and say, you know, I don't have enough here to worry about. One broken toilet, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I guess in this case, to me, it seems like there's a pretty clear-cut distinction between the Parks Department and the other legal entities in the county. And the park is neither an enforcer nor a adjudicator.
No, but you guys are the commissioners and you're both policymakers and you are managers of all the departments underneath you. And ultimately, the responsibility would fall back, I would assume, to you guys to find a way to help them enforce and protect the public's property. I don't know what the answer is. I just feel like this is too many reasons to just let it go. When if everybody's pointing a finger at a different department and saying, it's not my problem anymore. And none of the departments are saying it is my problem to fix.
Yeah, I think you haven't understood some things about how county government works. The electeds are totally independent of us. We can't tell them how to do anything. And even at that, you're familiar with, say, in a ancillary situation, the Boise decision, that was interpreted in different ways throughout the county, and that developed for us a lot of problems. We couldn't do anything about it. We can't tell Longview how to do something.
I'm fully aware that you can't tell electives how to do their job.
So what are you specifically advocating?
I'm advocating for you to find a way to protect public property that you are responsible for. If it is being damaged, especially if you have a picture of somebody, I gotta believe there's some way to push this to the point where you start getting some people prosecuted and make it a penalty for them to damage public property, rather than just say, we'll let them get away with it. Regardless of what elected official is doing that.
You know, just out of, anyhow, this could go on for a long time when we're getting repetitious.
I agree.
So, Alyssa, do we have a problem with vandalism at the shooting range?
Not that I'm aware of.
And we have, but there's some, when the shooting range is open, there's somebody there.
Correct.
Right. So having staff, in this case, it's a volunteer staff that's there all the time, is a huge deterrent to people doing what you described. You mentioned that when the park host is in operation at the Gardner Park, it goes down. It's not fuel proof, but it does go down. Those are the only two places that have a full-time presence of somebody on staff. So the antidote from what you're saying is you have to figure out a way to get somebody on site, a caretaker at each of those parks. That's the experience that is effective in deterring vandalism, or being pretty quick to paint over the graffiti so that, you know, it's not ignored, because that's another important aspect of that. When there's graffiti, that encourages vandalism. If it's left alone, it just gets a life of its own. So we don't maintain a park system that has staff at every park, and that's the challenge. There's not enough money in the budget to fully fund parks.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is Riverside, would it have the ability to have a host if you advertise for a host? Do you have hookups and stuff like that? I'm not.
I
sure
don't
you do.
have hookups or anything like that. So we'd have to have those.
I wonder if the cost of doing that would offset, you know, what we pay for fixing toilets and doing that type of thing.
It probably would in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, you can put a host everywhere, but Riverside is kind of our big park in the county, and I
Yeah.
think it's an important park. It serves Lexington, it's growing. We just talked about the use of the ball fields, and if you could drive by there on the weekend when you redid the soccer fields, it's busy all the time. So I don't know if it makes sense to maybe explore that a little bit.
And we have in the past, and camp hosts are great when you can find them,
Yeah.
but you can't always find them.
Yeah.
We've been lucky to have the same camp host during the summer for 3 years. They're fantastic. I've had camp hosts that are more work than, help.
Yeah.
So it's not always a good situation. And the bummer part about Riverside is it's so big, even if we had somebody living on site, they wouldn't be able to see every single part of the park.
Yeah, it's good sized. I get it.
And we talked about fencing, and putting a gate in, and just to hire somebody to open up the gates and close them every single night was astronomical. And then you still have to worry about the fact that we have all those little private entrances into the park, because we have so many neighbors. And I talked to the sheriff's department and asked, for their opinion on if they think it'd be a good idea. They told me it wouldn't, because it'd be hard for them to come in at night and patrol, because they do drive through the park a couple times every night.
What about, we contract with whoever we contract, Phoenix, and I know they drive around some other places. Any thoughts on maybe having them run through there?
We can see how much it would cost.
This is a frustrating thing to have this facility and I'm sure it's just a small group of people that want to mess with it. And I totally agree. If we get a hold of them, I'd love to see our prosecutor and stuff really do some damage with them. But But if there's something additional we can do that seems reasonable, I think we're probably all open to doing that.
Well, you basically know that as time goes on, one or two scofflaws are going to put more and more chains on the public. At some point, if we don't deal with the scofflaws and we do avoidance, which is what is being suggested, it's a temporary cure, and maybe it's worth it. But I find that whole outlook repugnant. We're not tackling the problem. By the way, what
Yeah.
came to my mind on the lighter side, because I'm older than 75, when I fly, I don't have to take my shoes off. You figure that one out, but that's in the law.
So there is something to look forward to, being 75.
About this much to look forward to.
Yeah, I don't agree. I don't disagree with you, Aaron. I'm just trying to find a way to save these parks. And yeah, if they would deal with the small percentage, really deal with the small percentage that do this, you wouldn't have that problem. Totally agree.
Yeah, and it's worth exploring. We found these meetings to be actually pretty useful to air some pretty fundamental stuff. I will always try and enlist the public. The big difference between our society used to be that we were law-abiding people before we were your friend. So if you, as a friend of mine, committed something bad, I would not turn a blind eye to it. But we've gone beyond that now. We're just like every other place. It's like,
Well, I appreciate your optimism about the past. But vandalism in restrooms has been the bane of every park system that I've been acquainted with since I was first an elected official. I mean, that is just part of the responsibilities of operating parks. There is going to be vandalism.
and you've had all this time and you haven't stopped it.
And we haven't been able to stop it. I remember doing some research before I became a commissioner on the restroom at Vandercook Park. So that's right in the middle of the old west side. And it was in the center of the park and totally destroyed on a regular basis, $80,000 a year for replacement of parts. And I said, isn't there a less costly way of providing those services that isn't so expensive to replace or to repair? And there are some cities that have abandoned typical restrooms and just taken advantage of what we use at all of our parks and festivals. And that's a porta potty system. Those are relatively inexpensive to replace if they get vandalized. But there's not much to vandalize in a plastic room. So it's just that it's a porta potty in the middle of parks, and people don't like it. Doesn't look good, but that some cities have bitten the bullet, and that's how they reduce the cost of the vandalism. Because nobody can really afford to have somebody on staff on every park. I mean, that's just enormously expensive. So you try to do the best you can. You respond as quickly as possible. I know it took a long time before we were able to replace the restroom out at Riverside Park because of the fire and, gathering the funds and getting the grants and all that stuff. But
Have you ever used the old starting blocks? The hole in the ground with the place to put your foot pads on?
I think that's more European, isn't it, than
Well,
American?
Well, if you're in India, it's called an Indian loo versus a European loo, but it's not so much to damage. Hey, we can step backwards.
Commissioner Weber, indicates we've had this problem a long time. I remember, and I've told this story before in the 90s, I said on the IAC, which is now RCO, on a, it's called NOVA committee, and looked at funding projects. And we had a gentleman from the IAC that was a project manager, and he'd bring in and anytime you were out at one of these remote parks and they wanted new toilets, he fought like heck not to have wooden ones. He hated the wood ones. He always wanted concrete. And finally, on one day, I said, why do you always want the concrete? Because they're more expensive. Wouldn't these do it for you? He says, you ever see the bullet holes in all the wood ones? He was afraid of being in there and all these bullets come flying through.
You know,
It's a laughably sad situation,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, we probably beat that about all to death here today, huh?
A little bit. I think we're good.
You should come to see us more often.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to.
Okay.
Mm.
Thanks for your time.
One more thing. We've talked about the RCO grant that I'm applying for right now. However, we need to put in a resolution to approve that we are going for funding. And it is for the legacy play area at Riverside Park, which includes a asphalt pump track and larger playground.
Savannah Clement, Public Services. Just to clarify, it doesn't have to be a resolution. RCO is just requesting minutes observing board approval for our application for the Legacy Park funds from RCO.
Legacy Parks, that's the name of the program.
We've been calling it that internally. It's not necessarily a dubbed name. It can be called whichever the board wants us to call it. We've just been calling it Legacy Park because it includes a lot of different features and something that we like to leave a positive impact on the community. So we've been calling it Legacy.
So you'll present us with a written ordinance or some language?
It's just, at this point, we're just seeking board approval that you're approving our application to hopefully get these funds.
And the application involves a 50% match?
That's correct.
Okay, which would be around about what?
That would, as far as dollar amount, go ahead, Alyssa.
So with this grant, the max that RCO will put forward is 500,000. However, the project is $1,025,000 to account for the possibility for a cultural resources survey.
And then just a refresher, we're hoping to use the funds from our Cook Ferry dredge spoil sales to put towards our portion of the match.
Oh, some revenue for the department.
We're hoping, correct?
So a question might be, should we solve the vandalism problem before we add more of a target?
I have yes. So, we're coming near budget season. We have a laundry list of things that we'd love to do at the parks, right? We always do. Something that Alyssa mentioned we've explored in the past has been a park host at Riverside. It just requires some significant infrastructure to get there. We were actually looking at that Storm Road mobile home. If the board recalls that we had to purchase that, we were actually going to try to see how we could move it to Riverside to have a permanent camp host location. Unfortunately, the cost of that was very significant, so much so that we just, the board had approved the surplus of that home, but we have considered that even going back about 5 years now. So it's something that's been on our radar. I would love to put together some costs for the board and bring it during budget season to see if that would be a possible solution. Also, different locking mechanisms on the bathrooms that wouldn't, of course, prevent it during the daytime, but we could lock them once park hours are, I think is it 10 p.m. for closure? So
Yes, during the summertime.
Castle Rock put new restrooms at the end of at the north end of
Yep.
their river trail, and those look like, or at least it says on there, that they lock automatically at a certain time and then they open it at a certain time, so that it doesn't sound like they have anybody that has to come by and do them.
correct. So that'd be something to look at. We could bring costs to the board, and then also, of course, adding on the Phoenix, kind of drive-through type situation. The fairgrounds, I don't know if they have them anymore, but they also had a park host for some years over by the rodeo grandstands, which is like the farthest point away from the office. And so it has been successful at other spots, and I do see value in that. So we can bring together some proposals to the board in the next month or so.
So are we good with them pursuing that grant, or?
Yeah, I think so. That doesn't commit us that we have to.
No, this is
But
just
it's
approving.
an
the-
opportunity.
Correct.
Yeah.
I would suggest then that we make it as a motion so that is
So
shown
it
in the minutes.
shows in the minutes.
Yes,
Very
please.
specifically.
Okay.
I'll move that we have approved the department's request to apply for a grant from RCO for a legacy playground improvement at Riverside Park, estimated at approximately $1 million with 50% match coming from proceeds from the dredge spoils at Cook's Ferry.
Okay, we have a motion. Questions on that? Comments on that?
No, it's just, it's our gift to the new commission because they've got to balance the budget.
You guys are killing me. Okay, seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Does that help you today? Okay,
Thank you.
good. Thanks for your time, Melissa. We appreciate it. We're real close to 10, aren't we? You okay with just moving forward? Okay, you guys okay with just moving forward? All right. So we'll go into agenda item review. I see Public Works. I see Susan back there.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. This week we have two items on the agenda. The first is the execution of the contract for striping with specialized pavement markings for the amount of $718,457.50. This was awarded to them earlier in the month of July.
This is one we're kind of actually looking at the feasibility of our own equipment because the cost of this keeps rising so dramatically.
Yes, the cost
that-
of this has risen dramatically, and so we're looking to bring forth in the budget cycle, purchasing our own equipment.
Makes sense to do it ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, we've been,
And the costs are rising because of environmental rules on the type of paint that's used, right? I mean,
and
that's,
the paint prices are going up, the labor prices are going up, timing. So this, we've been talking to other counties who have gone back to doing their own striping and what equipment they're using and how much it's costing them. So one of our supervisors has been working with several counties on what equipment they're using and what their cost savings have been.
well, labor cost savings probably won't exist by the county taking it over, but the advantage of not having to pay rent on equipment. I mean,
Yes.
if it's worth it.
And being able to do it if we, so one of our issues with this is we always have to make sure we go out and our chip seal is done and our overlay is done prior to this contract starting. And then we'll have smaller fixes that we do that will then be temporary stripe all winter. If we do something in September, and we should be able to then go out and just take care of it and not have to wait for another 10 months before it's done in permanent striping.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I understood. Did you say that the labor component?
She
will be about
mentioned
the
that labor
same?
costs were one of the functions of increase. But so are our labor costs. I mean,
Yeah, but I will remind us that, remember when Public Works was able to do some repair, it was
Yes.
considerable savings just on the labor itself.
Yes, because we pay our rate and when it's a public works contract, we pay the prevailing wage rate is required by,
And profit.
yes,
but that's the same rule that these contractors have to follow as well.
yes,
So that's all I'm saying.
yeah,
The savings have to come from other ways of applying the task.
so our rate, what we pay our employees does not change, but their rate would.
Okay, and Out of curiosity, we get a lot of rain. Some of those paints get to make the road slick. Are these new paints not slippery when wet?
The ones that make the road slippery are those thermoplastics that they torch down. So City of Kelso does it for their crosswalks, and we've been known to do it too. And those are the ones that are particularly slippery. As you saw in the Olympics this weekend when the bike races where the women were hitting the cobbles or hitting the crosswalks, and they were just wiping out.
Yeah, trying to walk on cobblestones with rubber-soled shoes is pretty risky on a wet day.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if you ride a motorcycle, you know they're slick. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If a motorcycle hits the paint, I would hope that they don't slip away.
If you hit most of that stuff straight on, you're pretty good. It's when you're turning and it's wet
So
that
you
it
still
causes you
notice it?
problems. Oh, yeah, you notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I always vote for us spending a little extra on paint that includes some kind of abrasive in it if possible, or something like that.
Most of the center line stripe, they actually have glass beads in it
Yeah.
for the reflectivity.
Yeah. We kind of got you off track here, but just wanted to point out that the cost of this keeps rising pretty substantially. So we are looking at the possibility of trying to find ways to bring it back down.
Just ballpark off the top of your head, the equipment for doing this would cost.
Is it 700? 700-ish.
Yeah, okay. That's the bottom line of
Right.
almost anything.
Yeah.
It's equipment intensive. And then, of course, we got the amortization, the maintenance on that and all that. So we pay $718 to get the job done in this contract.
Yes, but this year, because last year we paid over 900,000, we reduced the miles that we're doing this year in order to reduce our costs, because we were anticipating a bid over $1 million if we did the exact same striping. So we limited it down to the roads that are chip sealed or overlaid this year, plus all of our arterials and collectors. Our main routes are all getting done. Some of our secondary streets are not going to be striped this year.
Yeah. And I think I can't speak for all the cities, but I know Castle Rock has kind of peeled back some of their work just because of the cost. And I would assume the others, maybe if not doing it, looking at it.
Yes, I believe this year, we usually have all of the cities and sometimes Wahkiakum County also piggybacking on this contract. I believe, I can't remember who is doing it this year, maybe just Woodland. I don't recall, but it's just one city this year that's participating.
So I like the idea that new equipment could be useful for the municipalities also.
Yeah.
Yes, we could do the work for them under our interlocal, just like we do some of the chip sealing for some of the cities.
That should be less expensive for them too.
Yes.
Would you anticipate hiring more staff then in order to do the paint program?
We haven't finished figuring that out.
Okay.
That is going to be included in our analysis when we come and request it.
Yeah, that obviously would be the additional cost too, if we have to hire people to do the job, assuming your current employees are already working, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay, anyway,
Thanks.
sorry to get you off.
No,
down
that's
this
all
road.
right. So then the other two items that we have are mitigation credits by sell agreements for the Cowlitz mitigation partners for the Cowlitz River Mitigation Bank. One is for the South Cloverdale Road project at $21,995. And then the other is for the Allender Bridge Replacement project at $37,100. So this is in lieu of us having to try and do a mitigation site and plant and maintain and report for 5 to 7 years, depending on what they are requiring in that permit. So this, we pay a little money and it's maintained by others. We're trying to get all of our final stuff
So that
lined up.
the Cowlitz River Mitigation Bank, that's the one that's organized by the city of Kelso.
I believe they were involved in the initial
Right.
organization. It's out here on Allen Street a ways.
It's just, it always is amazing. Allender is a long ways away from that watershed, but I guess it counts.
It's considered part of the lower Cowlitz drainage area. We're right at the north end of the limits for that project.
And Cloverdale must be, it's outside the Cowlitz.
Yes, I think we might have had to get a waiver for that one.
So if we were to hang on to this, did you say, did I hear it right? Didn't we have to monitor this for like 7 years?
Yes, if we, yeah.
If we pay the fee to the bank, they do this work.
They
for
do,
us.
they do everything. We don't have to, Commissioner Weber remembers the last time we tried to create our own mitigation site and how woefully wrong it went. And we ended up buying into the bank in the end. We do have a mitigation site up in Poodle, and that we were monitoring it, and we had issues because the horses kept eating everything. So
The wild horses.
the wild horses, yes.
Oh, yeah, the wild horses, yeah. Yeah, interesting, okay.
Any other questions?
Nope,
Thank you.
I don't think, yeah, thank you. Health and Human Services, I see Carol's on. What do we have for them?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Carol.
Carol Harrison, Health and Human Services. Gina will be popping on too. She was going to discuss our contract for tomorrow, but I think your office had reached out and wanted me to pop on. There was an opportunity for some funding that was received by Kathy and myself, related to, let me pull it up, related to strengthening emergency food response networks. It's coming from the Department of Agriculture. They've been reaching out, trying to get us to take these funds. It's kind of a little confusing, actually, reading it. It looks like they're looking for us to help support local farmers and food businesses while improving food security within our community. It doesn't actually say we have to buy food and distribute it, but I'm really struggling to understand exactly what our role would be. It looks like it's about $44,000. They said they could also reach out to WSU Extension, which may be more suitable. I know they have some relationships with a lot of the local farms. Let's see, says 50% of the funds must be allocated to emergency food purchasing, which may be directly from farms and other local or regional food producers or through subcontracts with nonprofit hunger relief organizations. So that's someone like CAP that already does food assistance. We don't have a lot of content knowledge in this area. And I don't know what the board would wish us to do, but it did come through. I think, it looks like it went to Kathy and Kelly both.
The cancellation of the federal program was mentioned at the last CAP board meeting. CAP is the agency that provides the food that's distributed to the churches for the fish food program. And they, so they were aware that they weren't quite sure what was going to happen. So it was interesting that this program from the state is apparently in response to that federal cutback. I don't know. I don't know what our role is in helping CAP get those food funds, but.
And it maybe we need to have maybe we need to reach out to CAP. It looks like we have until the end, like the 31st to give a decision. Otherwise they'll reach out to those other folks, but maybe we can, Gina or I could reach out to Alona and ask them. It's really interesting what our role would be. It doesn't actually say we would be like a pass-through like we're used to, but it was very different, kind of caught us off guard.
And it's just not for every farmer. The program provides public purchasing, marketing opportunities to Washington farms and food businesses, prioritizing underrepresented farmers and producers while supplying low barrier, culturally meaningful emergency food to Black, Indigenous, and people of color and other socially disadvantaged communities experiencing hunger. So it's not for everybody. It's targeted for specifics. And are we out of food in our food banks? I'm not even sure where this comes from.
I'm not even sure the program suggests that they will be able to put more food out.
Yeah,
It's a bureaucratic.
we get, personally, if you want my straight opinion, I wouldn't waste your time on it. We'll get blasted because we turned down money from the government, but that's okay. They can blast me. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And it does look like that they will automatically reach out to WS Extension. And I think they said the Cowlitz Conservation District, which I don't know much about the Cowlitz Conservation District, but we could just divert them and tell them to go ahead and do that.
I actually think WSU Extension is probably a better fit for that than us anyway, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think your suggestion there is fine with me, Carol.
Okay.
I think it's actually fine with us.
I think so.
Yep.
Great. We will do that. And there's Gina to talk about the consolidated contract.
Okay.
Hey, good morning. Gina James, Health and Human Services. On the agenda tomorrow is an amendment to our consolidated contract with the Department of Health. They are adding the first half of the allocation for the foundational public health services funding for this current fiscal year. So they will issue the second half in the first part of 2025. So we see it come in that it's broken out 2 separate allocations during the fiscal year. So this is the first half that's coming to us. And that is the only thing that's included in this allocation. This is the funding that's been discussed at the Board of Health recently, as we've been talking about looking at different priorities and things. It's we've kind of been talking about this funding in conjunction with that. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is this the funding I think we talked about before, because we didn't utilize a lot of it, and I think there was a suggestion we reach out to other counties and how they're is this the one we were talking about a little bit?
I think that did come up at the last Board of Health meeting, I believe. Yeah, it does have, there's quite a few different things that you could do with the funding. So yes, as we've been talking about different priorities and what other counties are doing, that this funding has been part of that conversation. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just trying to get it straight in my head that which one we were talking about.
And you said that the amount is for roughly how much money?
So the annual allocation is about 1.4 million. So this is the first half, and they'll we'll see another amendment probably the first part of 25 with the second half for the fiscal year.
And this is like most allocations we get, it's more like, I always describe it as a line of credit. We tap against it when we do something that meets the criteria.
Yeah, this one is
Does it come
this
down
one
to
is a
sit in our
little
accounts?
It does. So
Okay,
this one's a little bit different. They send the money. And then at the end of the year, we reconcile. So we send back whatever is unspent. So for last fiscal year, we just sent back, it was over $900,000 that we sent back from last fiscal year that was not used. So it is a little bit different in that sense, but we do have to reconcile and send back what's not used.
okay. Any questions on that? Okay. We'll see you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Kathy, finance.
Kathy Funkbaxter, Finance Director. I have 3 items for tomorrow's agenda. The first is a agreement that we're wanting to enter into with a company called Debt Book. This is to do a 1-year renewal on our existing contract that's for leases and SPIDA management software as a service. And then we want to add an additional module called debt management under that same service agreement. This is something we talked with the commissioners about when we did our last budget amendment, that this software, that to add that one additional item would be $9,000 annually. For both software modules, it'd be a total of $24,000 for 1-year period. Under this 1-year renewal for the book, for the leases and the SPIDA management, they are not charging us any additional escalation. It would be for the same amount, $15,000. And then for the debt management software, typically you see an implementation fee. They are waiving the implementation fee for this. And so we're only entering into a 1-year contract because we're utilizing another state agency's competitive process for this procurement.
And what's it give us that we don't have?
On the debt management, it provides the treasurer's office with the ability to load up a lot of information that we currently have in multiple spreadsheets. It allows us to have multiple users on the system. So all of the debt that is being managed for special districts or junior districts would be accessible to those parties as well as many of the individuals in the county, my office, and also the auditor's office.
So it's not only just the finance department, it helps the treasurers and
The auditor's
how she
office.
manages money for the utility, for diking districts and all those different
Yes.
entities. Okay.
Yep.
And up to this point, that's all been done essentially on spreadsheets.
Yeah, lots of spreadsheets and lots of different pieces of information. So when a question comes up and we need to go look back at historical, when that was issued and what purpose it was issued for, they're having to go to multiple places and files to find the information. So.
And the picture is that after this new module is in place, someone like a diking district and
Would be able to have access.
they'll have access off, they'll be offsite, they'll have access onto this and only to that.
Right, only to their information. So this will be a more efficient and effective way to manage the bond and debt program.
So if the diking district has questions on their stuff now, they contact like treasurer's office, treasurer office.
Yes,
does
has
the
to go
work
find
get
it
the
and-
information back to them.
Right,
So it'll cut that part out.
right.
I think it's pretty clear that that's a valuable thing, but do you have any quantization of it?
No, I don't. I know that having this system provides us also the ability to pull information out into spreadsheets and things like that. So for example, for my area, being able to do the budget and having all that information so that I can pull it out and be able to manipulate that spreadsheet so that I can put it into the budget.
I take it that's a no
Yeah, that's a
answer to
no.
my question.
Yes, that's a no.
Okay. $9,000 doesn't go that far, but that's probably, if we call it a man month, that's probably be adequate.
Yes,
And you,
with all
it's
benefits.
pretty self-evident you'd save much more than a man month.
Yes.
Okay.
Any
And
other
this is a
questions?
decision that will carry on to next year and the year after and so forth.
Well, it would have the ability to renew, but this is a 1-year contract only. And that's at the recommendation of the prosecuting attorney's office, because the master contract we're utilizing expires in 2025.
And I think this meets something I've asked for in the past on new software. Whatever the data goes in can actually be pulled out. So we still own the data. It's not captive under these people.
Correct, correct.
So in the end, if you have to, you end up with a pile of spreadsheets.
Yeah. With what we currently have. And we can pull all the data out, like we said, in
Right.
and import it in Excel and things like that.
Yeah, and that way, if you choose another package the next time from a different vendor, you still have your data.
Right.
That may seem like a stupid question, but that's a favorite trick by a lot of software people. Well, we have an internal format. You're going to have to buy our compatibility package.
Is that part of the sales pitch they don't tell you at times?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay. Then we also have the title, federal forest Title III funds. We put out back in May, we asked for authorization to solicit for project applications that might be eligible for this funding. We have received basically 2 applications for consideration. The first one is the Cowlitz Fire District 6 and 3 joined and submitted a joint application requesting $12,000. And so that's to provide emergency services. And then the second item is the Sheriff's Office is requesting $8,000 to provide essential equipment towards search and rescue operations in the county. So that would fully utilize the $20,000 available for this program.
I was writing and the joint request is for how much?
It's for $12,000.
Okay, thank you.
And that's to provide services to the east of Kidd Valley to the Johnson Ridge Visitor Center.
And was that the full size of their ask?
Yes, yes.
And the only other ask was from the sheriff?
The only other ask was from the sheriffs for $8,000.
So we didn't have to turn down anybody.
Yes. We don't have to turn anybody down.
We didn't turn anybody down.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Yeah.
There was one submission, but it didn't qualify. When we looked at all of the parameters, it did not qualify. And we discussed that with them and asked them if they wanted to resubmit, and they declined. Okay, and we're at the end of the 45-day comment period, and that's why we're bringing this forward. We didn't receive any comments.
All right.
And then my last item is the request for a public hearing to do another budget amendment. This amendment would be specifically to address appropriating funds, revenues and expenses for the creation of a new fund for Cowlitz County Cafe Food Services, and to present a budget for that particular activity.
This is putting some service back over into Hall of Justice.
For the Hall of Justice. Mhm. And as a pilot project as well.
Right.
Any other questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, thank you.
We have, Jessica doesn't have anything at 11 for HR. So we have time on a couple things. I have a couple things on my miscellaneous list. And I know Commissioner Mortensen was contacted and I was contacted. I don't know if Commissioner Weber heard from our senator, but the port is asking us to look out in Willow Grove by the fishing area. It's locked and then it opens at a certain time in the morning. The people are lining up on the side of the road, which we're being told is creating a hazard. So the port is asking us if we would possibly take a look and have some no parking signs there so they don't utilize the side of that road and clog it up. It sounds like where the boat launch is, that's open all the time. They could park in there until the other gate was open. And so they're just asking us to look at that. We'll probably have that come up at some point. That would take a public hearing and stuff to have some
Yeah.
comments on it.
I chuckled that again, we have to put signs to tell people not to endanger other people.
Yeah.
In India, those signs aren't quite effective.
Yeah. So I just bring that up because I know we were contacted and we will address that, but it would have to be a public hearing so the public could have some comment on that. The other item that,
Well, excuse me.
go ahead.
So this is a request from our road department because of a threat to public safety? Who said it's causing a problem?
Yeah. It would probably have to come through our road department, but
I would think.
who I actually heard it from was from the port.
Mhm.
I've contacted Mike and he's on it.
Okay.
In fact, yeah, I don't think there's any issue there. Seems like there was something else I started to write it down, but I was listening to what you said and I stopped and it's your fault.
For the next 6 months, everything's going to be my fault. Then guess what, guys? It's all going to reverse.
Yeah, then we'll be blamed, right?
Went to the rodeo on Thursday, went to it on Sunday, chatted a little bit with Kim on both days. It's the first time the rodeo has ever sold out 3 consecutive days.
Wow.
Had good
Nice.
attendance. It was a good event.
Yeah, as I understand it, you were in the overflow area called the beer garden.
Yeah, I sit over in the beer garden. I will have a beer now and again. And it was I liked it over there because on that's where all the stuff, I mean, that's where the steer wrestling and the roping and all that and the barrel racing, they all coming through there. So, yeah. so it was successful. We had something come up and I know I was contacted and I think probably all got an email on it on the wait times for commercial customers at Waste Control. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yep.
And I thought I'd touch on that when we have public work or when we have Mike and stuff in, a little bit on that. Basically, and I don't know what the answers to it, but I looked through the contract. Anytime I hear those type of things, I always say, well, what do we have in the contract? And we do have some time expectations in the contract, 15 minutes basically for a person to get in and get rid of their stuff. I didn't see any teeth tied to that. There's stipulations in there. If the place is not open, there's teeth tied to that. So I don't know what solutions are there. One of the things this commercial customer asked is, can they deal directly with the county and take directly to the landfill? I don't know the answer to that. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm just throwing out that we did get this comment come through, so we're looking at it and we'll probably talk more with, but I know that it went to more than just me, so.
Yep. And that's another one, Mike is,
I think he's working
he's
on it.
addressing that or trying to
I
figure.
didn't want to get too deep in it other
Yeah.
than just acknowledge that we do have it. We are looking at it.
And I did remember the other one, I got a call about traffic problems on Green Mountain tied in with the freeway tie-up going southbound.
People taking the alternate up and over.
Yeah, apparently it's bumper to bumper up Green Mountain. I also think was told there was an accident yesterday or two up there, and the whole place is a morass. And I forwarded the message to Mike Moss also, because we have no control over WashDOT, but I don't know whether we could even restrict traffic up Green Mountain. That's this is a perfect example of, we got two choke points in the county. One is a Lewis and Clark Bridge, and the other one is between Woodland and Kalama.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that way when Dennis took office, and he hasn't fixed it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what we can do. I don't.
Yeah. I agree. I don't know what solutions we have, but
So one approach might be to have a discussion with WashDOT to say, does this provide you with the data of how important it is to provide a more direct and safer alternate? And by the way, your plan to do a bike path connection would help that double purpose.
Oh, yes, yes.
You know, I mean, just to remind them
Yeah.
that's something that should work out.
yeah, that's
Makes
true.
sense to us, but
That's true. Any other miscellaneous? I see.
I did want to remind you both that this year's leadership conference from WASAC is in Vancouver.
Vancouver.
So it's close, and we won't have to worry about overnight costs and excessive travel. So it's always good to go to those, and the conversation with other commissioners is useful because we don't get to talk about things with each other.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage you to consider going this year. Registration is open.
It's in November.
Yep, it's in
Same as
November.
last year. Last year was
Right. Mid-
Spokane.
Right.
Commissioner Weber and I went over.
So it's November. Do you think I should attend?
I'm gonna leave that up to you.
Well, it has to be approved by the board.
Well, I don't even, the registration,
Yeah.
but if it's down in Vancouver, I'll probably go down, but I'll just drive down.
Right.
Except I-5 northbound will be blocked by that.
Well, probably so. I'll go up over Green Mountain.
You've got the Jeep, you can go over cross-country.
I can go, yeah, off-road.
You put pontoons on it, you can go on the west side of the freeway.
Yeah. Okay, what else did I see? Building and planning showed up. Did you guys have?
We have the potential living.
At 11. So we do have something at 11. Jessica just doesn't have anything. It's you. So you're the one keeping us here at 11. It's.
Well, I was wondering if the call for bids for that, the qualified consultants, is that from your department? So it's just a call for bids. Is that something we do every year, or is this something new? This is item 2 on our agenda for tomorrow.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. This is something new. We have a lot of applicants that come to our counter. Most of them are the ma and pa's of the world that we're trying to help through their process, navigate. And we don't have like a list that we can hand them and say, these people we know do business in our county. It's gonna be a fluid list. They can apply or submit stuff to us anytime, but it would be just a nice tool that we can have online that we can hand out to customers to give them a little bit more easy access.
I know there's a reluctance to recommend.
We're not
geotech,
recommending
so I can't
anybody.
do
Yep.
that. No,
Nope, we're not
don't wanna do that.
recommending.
You're just saying these people
Here's
meet
the
the
list of-
qualifications that
Correct,
we
and
look for when we're.
We'll verify that they're, licensed, but besides that, it's up to the applicant. But we're just trying to give them some more tools. Anything we can do. They can look online, they can look in a phone book if those exist, but or that they don't know what they're asking for,
I worry on stuff like that. Any good deed will go so far, and then you'll pay a price, which is, it was on your list. You didn't know that they were a fly-by-night outfit? You owe me $25,000 plus another $100,000 for misleading me. And yet today, particularly with AI, it's really dirt simple on the net to just ask who in Cowlitz County provides blah-de-blah service.
Yep. We have a lot of people that don't have internet access or don't
Wait,
have
wait
it.
a second.
They do, and they come in and we have to help walk them through the application process often. You'd be surprised. I am.
I keep hearing we'd have a lot of people don't have internet access. I think I'm making it a personal policy not ever to accept that as an excuse.
I agree with that. And they also say they don't have email also. And our online website or our online tool for our permitting system requires an email so they can get the communication back and
Yeah.
forth. And they say they don't have email either.
So how do you deal with them?
We set them up an email address we walk them through it, how to set one up.
In the office?
Yeah, in the lobby.
In the lobby. Well, that's reasonable enough. You don't do
Right.
any more than that, right?
No.
So this is a consultant group?
It's just a group of people, if they're looking for a land surveyor or a geotechnical designer, if they have some wetland issues and they need a critical area consultant, we're just trying to just give them all the tools that we get asked often, do you have a list of, it's like, we don't have a list, but we can put a list together. And they can be on it at any time, any business or company. We're just creating the start.
And how will you distribute that list and what caveats will be on that list?
We will do a debarment to make sure that they're legal to work, just like a bid would be. But it's up to the homeowner or whoever, the company to hire.
I like the fact that you do the consults and all that,
Mhm.
that is something that is relatively unfathomable from the outside, but the rest of the stuff,
I know. I know, we're putting everything out there and giving them every tool we can, and then we help, we're helping. We're truly trying to help. The staff consults have been a huge help, and we put a lot of staffing resources towards that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
they're free, but we're trying to give them every bit of information we can up front.
So this is a hearing that you're planning?
No,
Oh,
just state qualifications, just for them to submit their information to us. It's just a public thing where we can advertise it on the website and we can
right. I've
send
gotten
it.
requests in the past for other vendors in other areas wanting us to put them on the website, and I've said no, and I thought I had agreement.
Yeah, we're not putting the vendors on the list. It's just a list that we would, like environmental health has a list of qualified septic pumpers that they utilize. They hand that out. We're looking at that type of list.
And how does someone get qualified to be placed on that list?
Well, they would have a license and we would make sure they're not debarred in the Cowlitz County. Just looking at just looking at Department of Labor and Industries to see if they have a valid driver's or business license.
My gut tells me we shouldn't do that.
Okay.
We did just get an email about that I-5.
I was CC'd on an email this weekend over about the Green Mountain Road and a video. I believe several of you were emailed on.
Yeah. We had, we were the guest of Rotary last Wednesday.
We were.
And had Tracy and Mike and Wayne. I didn't have to really say much at all. I let them run the show, and I thought it was pretty well received.
I think so too.
Received. I
It
think,
was good questions.
Quite a few people wanted to chat with you afterwards, so.
We had a lot of questions. It was good.
Good.
A lot of feedback.
Yeah. Okay, let me, I don't mind taking, we can do
Whenever.
that executive
No, whenever.
session early, but let me open up and make sure I don't have anything from the public that they want to discuss before we do that, before we disappear in the back. So if we have anything from the public that they want to talk about, we'll do that. If not, we'll move that executive session up. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I'll just comment right quick and say, I know the PUD has a list that they maintain of recommended conservation contractors. And I can't remember if they call it a red star list or what they call it, but if they get too many complaints, they remove contractors from that list. So I don't know how that works for them, but I can't imagine you guys couldn't make it work something similar for building and planning.
Yeah, the question is not whether it's doable or not, it's how much it's going to cost for how much do we gain. So I think I need to know how many people would benefit from this. I need to know how many people are going to complain. You took us off the list. You didn't give us fair warning. You at least have to give us 90-day warning and that kind of stuff. And we were in the process of trying to repair this problem, and you cut the grass out from under us. You know, I just don't want to invite that kind of thing.
You can make it as complicated as you want. I guess I'm just saying that somehow they make it
No,
work
I
at the
appreciate,
PUD.
you know, I appreciate what you say. You're saying it exists and the PUD has done that and it seems to have worked fine.
As far as I know.
I think if
How long
EHU,
ago
I
was
think
that?
it,
How long ago was that?
Okay, so we have to keep that one.
I don't know, 40 years.
Oh, okay, because
They're still doing it. I mean, when I did a rental house, they still had a list of recommended people that I talked to them about.
yeah.
I think if EHU has a list, I mean, we're already doing it for one department. May as well do it for the other department too. So I'm okay with coming up with a list.
I don't know how they make it work or don't work. I don't know the details of it.
We're not guaranteeing performance.
Okay, we just got word, the attorney isn't available till 11. So Doug. So we'll handle, okay. So we'll, if there's nothing else, we'll recess this and get back at 11 and handle the
11.
executive session. Okay?
Sounds good.
Oh, Ryan,
Ryan's here.
you have something different?
Quickly, just a follow-up from last.
Okay,
Well, let's do.
about 10 minutes. That would take us to 11 anyway, right? And what was yours? Remind me again what yours was?
Continuation from our last Monday's discussion.
And it was litigation or?
Yes.
Performance?
It was potential litigation? Okay, so we'll go on potential litigation for 10 minutes with Ryan.
Put my camera on.
Okay, back from executive session, no decisions were made. I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Briefly, the topic being and lack of ability or care to of ability to fulfill their statutory obligations to house individuals who have been committed to JR juvenile rehabilitation. Based upon our discussion today, as well as our discussion last week, for, I guess, ratification from the board, perhaps Chairman Dahl, to be the signator to join litigation against the state related to JR juvenile rehabilitation and that's a lawsuit. This is being between WASAC and Washington Association of Prosecuting Attorneys. They have initiated litigation has not started, pending lawsuit being filed, but they've retained Pacifica Law Group to start the litigation. Brief background, back on July 5th, the state of Washington, DCYF sent notification to all the counties indicating that due to their current housing crisis in the juvenile system, being Greenville and Echo Glen, they are unable to take away our commitments. Serious crimes or crimes with a lot of criminal history. In juvenile, there's two types of sentences: local sanctions, which is a 0 to 30-day sentence on a crime, or housed locally in our juvenile detention facility, and then there's JR commitments, which are normally 15 to 36 weeks, 50 to 65 weeks, or more. Obviously, much more serious crimes, or an individual committing a somewhat serious crime with criminal history. Those individuals are supposed to be sent to DCYF to be housed at Greenville or Oakland. So that's basically what the state is saying. Are those people sentenced to juvenile facility? We're not taking any more people, so they have to stay in their facility until on July 5th, Greenville had 240 juveniles and young adults housed. They have a capacity of 180 or 185. So basically their notification was we're not taking. Brief history, I guess the position of all the counties and probably WASAC is that the state should have seen this coming.
Is the mic on?
Nope.
Okay.
Brief history, back in 2010, Maple Lane closed. That's west of the Great Wolf Lodge up there north of Centralia. So they closed that down in 2010, which used to be a juvenile facility. That's currently a Western State facility. They just recently reopened it for Western State beds. 2018, legislation passed JR to 25. So it used to be that JR state facilities could house a person up to the age of 21. In 2018, they allow it now to have the state facilities to house people up to the age of 25 before they get transferred to the state adult DOC system. Most recently in 2022, the state closed down the Nassau Youth Camp, which, if I recall, housed over 100 individuals. So now all of a sudden there's a crisis where we don't have the beds. So that's a brief background as to kind of what the state has done in the last decade and a half, basically limiting beds, and now they're in a crisis situation where they don't have enough beds. So the basis of the lawsuit is essentially to obviously for the court to declare that they have a mandatory obligation to house individuals sentenced to a JR sentence, and to enter a writ of mandamus ordering them to fulfill their statutory obligation. So looking for authorization for the county to join that lawsuit. If there's any questions.
Well, I certainly am aware with my involvement with the state board, this is it should have been anticipated, and the example of poor planning at the top levels. And it again reinforces the rather cavalier attitude that state officials have, that if they can't do it, we just dump it back onto the locals, regardless of the costs. So I would Agreed. And I'd like to make the motion that we authorize our chairman to sign an agreement to join with other counties and the state associations in a lawsuit against the state in order to rectify this situation.
The only thing I would add, which we did discuss, is the anticipation at this point is that Wasac will be taking the lead and that the anticipated costs of the litigation will be handled through their litigation fund.
Right.
So at this point, we don't expect any costs to be filtered down to the individual counties.
Okay. We have a motion to join that and to authorize me to sign that document. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
I will send notification.
Great, thank you.
Tracy. Potential litigation, executive session, 15 minutes. Okay.
In ours.
Okay, back from executive session, no decisions were made. Is there anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, you won't be here. You'll announce on Tuesday your
Yeah,
absence
I'll be
schedule.
gone next Tuesday, all next week, actually.
And this Wednesday, what do we have on this Wednesday?
What do we have with?
Yeah. And
Public Works and ARPA. Okay. Okay. See nothing else, we'll adjourn. Thank you.